baby, it's episode 27 of The Whiners on March 27th, 2025. Hello, everybody. Greetings to our wonderful audience all around the world. Jeff Norman and Ryan Milton with you as always. And tonight, our special guest is the science editor and columnist for the Asia Times, Jonathan Tenenbaum, who comes to us from Berlin, Germany, where my guess is it's not the same time it is here. Probably not ideal for you. So thank you very much for staying up late or early or whichever way it works out. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. I have a little bit of wine here. I understand that you engage in that aspect of life also, so
I
feel
guilty.
at home. I feel at home.
And as a matter of fact, in honor of you, I selected tonight a German wine. I don't even know how to pronounce that word, but I went to my favorite wine store, and that's what I got. I usually drink red, but every now and then I switch to white. And when I do, I'm like, why don't I do that more often? This is really very tasty. So, to Germany and our friend in Germany.
Well, I'm an American, but I'm living here, so I'm sort of half and half. And I'm drinking a French wine, so there we are.
Oh, there you go. Well, and I am drinking Chop Shop, which is an American Cabernet Sauvignon, and this one is a delicious one with a nice juicy Texas steak that Jeff, you had recommended some time ago, and so now I'm drinking it. It's good.
All right, very good then. So in the intro, we had some clips, I guess, images from articles about fusion energy. We've noticed that recently that's become a hot topic, although for years this new technology has been in development. But for whatever reason, now people are starting to pay more attention to it. China is apparently well ahead of us, and that may not be such a good thing. You did wrote an article, I think in December, Jonathan, about that, and what can you tell us? So why don't we start with what is fusion energy? I guess it's synonymous with nuclear fusion, but for the benefit of people out there who don't have your academic background and technical expertise, just in simple terms, what is it?
Well, you have two basic forms of nuclear energy. You have the fission and fusion. Fission is the splitting of heavy atoms like uranium. It's on the far end of the periodic table, where the nucleus splits apart with the liberation of a lot of energy. And fusion is when light elements combine, fuse. And that's another source of nuclear energy. Nuclear because the energy is actually released by a reaction that changes, transmutes the material. But if you want to get an idea what we're talking about, don't forget the hydrogen bomb. Right? The hydrogen bomb is a fusion device, so-called thermonuclear device. And the hydrogen bomb proves that you can generate a lot of energy from fusion reactions. So the problem is not to do that. The problem is to do that in a controlled fashion so that we can use that as a practical energy source.
And then it's clean energy. We don't have to worry about running out of resources. The trick is to learn how to do it, right?
Well, as I say, we know in a sense how to do it. It's not a problem to get fusion reactions to occur in the laboratory. This was done long ago. But if you want to get positive energy surplus, which of course you need if you want to make a power plant, it's got to produce more energy than you put into it. That has not been accomplished up to now. The so-called engineering break-even, that is to say, the amount of energy that you put into the whole plant, that the whole plant consumes, and the amount of energy that the plant produces up to now. Well, we don't have any real plants, but we're not anywhere near that. What we're near to, and one of the main reasons why there's so much interest in fusion right now is there's some key parameters which you have to get to. This is all estimates, roughly speaking. There's a key parameter called Lawson criterion, which you have to get to a certain level to be able to get fusion breaking. And if you look at the history since 1960, I don't know
Whoa. What is that?
Well, it's a curve of the values you see on the vertical axis are the values of this parameter, the Lawson criteria. And you have a time scale, and you can see this is a logarithmic scale. So you see how in the course of the development of fusion technology, we've started out and increased by orders of magnitude, getting up near this area here, where you can get at least so-called scientific break-even. That is to say, the amount of energy released by the fusion reactions from the fuel is more than the amount of energy was absorbed by the fuel to get the process to work. So we're up here, right? So just the fact that these are all different kinds of technologies. Fusion has the characteristic that there are lots of ways, dozens actually, of different possible potential ways of getting a reactor to work, or technologies for a reactor. There are a lot of different ideas. So, but the trend is up, and now it's very plausible. In fact, I think it's generally accepted that in the next years you're going to get the so-called scientific break-even, and then the problem will be, how do you make that into a power plant, right? So it's a very complicated area.
Well, I'm willing to assume that it's a good bet, because all these very smart people, including yourself, are betting on it. Private industry is investing a lot of money in it. One of your articles actually, or your interview actually you did in December, was with someone who said that in the USA, it's the private companies that are investing more in it. And then in the opening, we have this one, I see the Motley Fool is recommending investing in it.
Yeah.
But would you admit to the average person, though, and I think it matters because there's, public opinion is important. That's what sways people. The average person may be like, geez, how long is this going to take? It's already been going on forever. How much money do you need just to do research? Is that fair for the average person to look at?
Right, it's really fair. I showed the graph because there is this saying, fusion is always 30 years away.
Mm-hmm.
So because there have been these,
and it's been that way for what, 70 years or something almost.
Yeah, since the 1950s, right? So, but of course, in the 50s, there was a period in the 50s when the Soviets introduced the invention of the tokamak, which is one of the main lines of fusion reactor technology. There was great euphoria. Then the problems started to build up and build up and build up. So, but as I say, there's steady progress, and now there are a whole series of technological breakthroughs along the way, which has brought the thing into a manageable, into where you can say, all right, with a high probability, you will have a net energy producing plant by maybe 2035, maybe sooner. But,
now I got some questions on this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought there.
I'm not talking about a commercial plant.
Yeah.
I would call that sort of a pre-prototype. But it's really, I would say, really impossible to say for sure.
So there's a few things. I know that, the United States has the National Ignition Facility, which NIF, which began being built in 97. They completed it in 2009. That's ours. That's our big thing here in the United States in terms of, I guess, a government-funded thing. Somebody in our chat made the point that America is 10 to 15 years behind China. I'm going to play in a second about 30 seconds from, I think was his name Andrew Holland? Was
Yes.
the gentleman you interviewed. But before I do, apparently in January, China broke their own fusion record because I think the deal is how long can you actually have this controlled power output? I think that's really the question, and I think it was almost 2 seconds or some number like that. Is that right, Jonathan?
Right. Yeah.
In terms of what China did.
No, it's minutes. They have now 1,200 seconds. I think was maybe now they have more.
So now look at this little 30-second video because I think he sort of encapsulates in this video a lot of what you were discussing with him and what other people like Jeff are saying about how much how much money do you put into it versus, how much we have been putting into it, how much the Chinese. So take a look at this.
California in 2022, with a brief but crucial moment of net positive fusion energy. But despite decades of U.S. leadership, China is catching up, building faster and spending twice as much to beat the U.S. to it.
If you care about AI, if you care about, energy leadership, you have to make investments into fusion. This is something that if the United States doesn't lead on, then China will.
So what would you say to what we're saying about how fast they are and what he's saying about?
Well, I think, as I said, there are a lot of roads to fusion. That's means that it's like you have a lot of racehorses that are racing. You can't say which one is going to win. But there was a tradition in the U.S., if you go back to the 50s, is sort of the idea is build and build and build. Build anything that has, it's not physically impossible. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Build 10 of them, different ones. Try out ideas. Don't sit around committees trying to save money, because in the end of it, of course, you don't throw money completely into the wastebasket. But it's actually cheaper to build a lot of things and see how they work than to sit around and to try to make the ideal technology, which may not then actually work, or when it does. So that's what the private companies are really bringing into it, is you have this transition from fundamental work in the national labs of the United States, generally labs that have close relationship with the military, which developed a lot of these ideas, but didn't pursue them up to the point of commercialization. We're not even oriented toward that. And now you have a transition to companies that are sufficiently confident that you're going to get to the goal, that they're investing a lot of money, about $5 billion of private money as of last year. That's U.S. You have private companies in the UK. You have private companies in China. We don't know how many. So they're actually building things. I've seen some of this work, and they're getting good results. So very ambitious. But I think the thing is out of the realm of this is one of these, it's a high risk area, not in the sense, I think, that we're not going to go there, but in the sense you don't know which of the racehorses is going to get there. If they get there, what is going to be the economic aspect? Because one thing is to build a reactor that produces a positive energy, but the question is this commercially viable? Well,
There was a report that was published about a month ago by some group called the Commission on the Scaling of Fusion Energy. I'm wondering if you're familiar with it. This is like a collaboration between a think tank and a couple of U.S. senators are on part of the commission too. And their whole purpose is, hey, let's make the U.S. a leader in this. And we put a link to this report under on our various social media channels, YouTube, Rumble, Locals, Facebook. So if people want to check that out. Are you familiar with this effort?
Not with that particular one, no.
Okay.
I mean, there's a large number of studies. There's not, I think, really a lack of studies, which, I say, they become more and more detailed because the question has shifted, as I mentioned, to the feasibility to more and more the question of commercialization.
Well, what caught my eye is that there's a couple of U.S. senators. There, it's flashing by now. It's Senator Jim Risch and Senator Maria Cantwell. And I don't know how. To me, that suggests, that it's the government is at least a couple of people from the government are paying attention to it.
More than that, John Kerry is an old from Massachusetts, is an old fan of fusion. And there's a company there called Commonwealth Fusion, which is pursuing one of the most viable options, one of the most likely options for a fusion plant. They're very serious. I've talked to their CEO, and they're very down to earth about how to get it to become a commercial success. And this is true of a number of companies. So this is, how should I put it? A lot of people know about this. I would say in senators, and because a lot of the companies are in different states of the U.S. That's not really the problems, as Andrew Holland said, was the U.S. government is not committed sufficiently. And it's not just a matter of large amounts of money. It's a matter of setting up the boundary conditions, the infrastructure, test stands, facilities that these companies can use, such as materials testing facilities, but which are oriented toward commercialization of fusion. So there's a lot of things the government could do, but there's, as far as up to now, also the Trump administration has not moved, as far as I can see, on this issue.
Well, they must know, because even an idiot like me knows that we need a lot more electricity for AI. Is that a factor that they're paying attention to?
Actually, hold on that thought. Specifically, on February 25th, the Chris Wright, who is the U.S. Energy Secretary, he said that the nation has to be out front when it comes to artificial intelligence. And he described that as this generation's Manhattan Project. So funding for California's Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant was basically turned back on. And then the whole thing that he was saying, let's see, I'm trying to find this. Here it is. And then under the Department of Energy, just days ago, March 17th, they basically released about $56 million of a $1.5 billion loan to Holtec for a Palisades nuclear power plant. And he said, today's action is another step towards advancing President Trump's commitment to increase domestic energy production, bolster our security, and lower costs for the American people. So there you have it. I mean, that's not a lot of money, though, I don't think. $56 million, which I think, in that interview.
But bear in mind, I'm almost sure that this is not fusion, but fission.
It's fission.
Fission, right.
It's fission.
So,
but I'm just saying that's there's a thought about it, I guess, in a general sense.
I mean, everything, I'm writing a book about AI, so AI is a big bubble, besides being a very useful technology. There's an enormous bubble around it, and it's very popular. So if you want to sell investment into energy technology, that's one way. It's sexy, if I can use that term, to mobilize.
Yeah, we got to be sexy. I mean, that's what I'm.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, that the AI which is extremely energy intensive, still is a small fraction of the total energy requirements of the United States. So I think the real issue is a little bit different. But okay, you could have dedicated compact nuclear power plants to supply these huge, these huge computer centers. But as I say, you can do that with fission, which is already there. It's a low risk, relatively low risk area. It's well known, it's mastered technology, although there are new innovative forms of it. Fusion is really good.
Question on this from the audience, since you brought it, since we talked a little bit about fission. So Sam and Sonia, if you can see on the screen, she says, what about the nuclear waste that is produced? Waste doesn't just disappear, you stick it in the ground. So of course, just for the audience, fusion versus fission about waste. What can you say about that?
Well, nuclear waste is a resource. That's the way to look at it. You can burn it in a I mean, in the sense of nuclear reactions. You can design reactors that actually eliminate at least a very large part of the most dangerous waste and release energy in the process. You can build reactors that have I'm talking now about fission, right? You can use a fusion reactor to deactivate radioactive waste also. From a technological standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, there's you can deal with the nuclear waste problem and don't bury it. There's no reason to bury it, really. This idea you have to bury it for a million years is, I think it's kind of weird. That's one thing you could do because the amount of waste is relatively small. People think
the word nuclear is nuclear, if I may say so. It's got quite a stigma attached to it. People of a certain age, like my age, probably remember back in 1979, a bunch of the biggest rock stars out there did a no nukes concert, I think there's actually 2 nights they did it, and the whole message is this is not safe energy. And nowadays, it seems that we might need something like this to influence the public to say the opposite. Are there any people in the world of popular culture who are championing
well,
this?
75% of the electricity, or 70 to 75% of the electric power in France is from nuclear. There's not this. I mean, people sort of live. A lot of the people who are all scared about this, they're sort of living in this part of the world. China's building nuclear power plants on an assembly line, almost. Germany, even, despite enormous, is now coming back. The idea, well, maybe we really need this technology. In Japan, where the worst or second worst nuclear disaster occurred, they're turning their plants back on.
Is it because they're smarter than we are, or because they have people who are more persuasive and who can influence public opinion?
I think, well, public opinion, I'm not a politician. I think that, but on the other hand, I would say, you want a dangerous source of energy? Fire. How many people have died in fires? How many people die every year of fires?
Right.
These sorts of people had been around at the time fire was first developed. We wouldn't have fire. It's dangerous. It releases smoke. It destroys cities. It burns people, right? So people have to start to grow up. Now I'm going to get angry, right? Grow up, and you can't live in the 21st century where we depend on technology more than ever before without having an elementary level of rationality. Some people are doing that, a lot of irrational people, but that's the message that should be sent. And some examples, like I've tried to give you, which I think can get people out of that realm, right? But there'll be resistance to it. But the world right now, the world economy, nuclear energy produces about 15% of the world electricity. So it's not like this is some kind of, or I put it a different way. You can oppose nuclear energy, but it's there and it's going to be there. So it's worthless. You bring nothing by opposing it. It's a fact.
Now, I was thinking about some things. President Eisenhower used to have this idea of atoms for peace. I was reading back, I saved this from back in October of last year, that the Director General of the Chinese Arms Control Department came out and said, we should abandon all nuclear weapons and then pursue a common goal among nations. And then, of course, right now in the news, you hear about what's going on with Iran. So there's the threat of a nuclear danger there from a military standpoint, or the question of this kind of development for peaceful use. But that brainwashing that Jeff's talking about seems to be part of the problem. And you really have almost like a fork in the road based on the growth of this technology that's before us.
Yes, but I think it's really kind of out of in a different realm that we're moving toward. If we leave aside the fission energy, is the plus of that is it's there, it
works now.
Technology there, it works, and the wastes also can be handled. Where's the nuclear waste being liberated? It's there. It's relatively. Don't forget, people should not forget that the amount of energy produced per unit weight or volume of nuclear processes is about 1 million times more than chemical processes. So if you could run your car on nuclear energy, fission or fusion, very hypothetically, right? Instead of being able to ride 600 miles or whatever, 500 on a tank, you could go 100 million miles on one tank. So the amount of waste is very small compared to the amount of energy. You can invest enormous sums in dealing with the waste problem, storing it, which is no problem. No. And then developing technologies to be able to utilize this waste as a resource, as an energy resource, or burn it up and burn it up as a deactivated, transmuted. So, but we're going in a different area where I think the fusion has many advantages compared to fission. Depending on the type of fusion that's used, there are different fusion processes. You can use deuterium and tritium, you can use deuterium alone, you can use hydrogen and boron. They're different optional fuels. But depending on the fuel, you have some radiation present. Fuel that's used in most of the reactors and almost certainly will be used in the first power plants. The reactions generate neutrons, and the neutrons collide with the materials that surround the reactor and make these materials radioactive. So you can reduce that problem greatly in different ways. It's not like in fission, the products of the reaction are all over the periodic table. Some are gaseous, some are solid, some are liquid, depending on the temperature. So you have a very complicated problem. In fusion, if you choose the materials right, you can make a much, much simpler problem. You have to do maintenance with remote technology and so on. So they're different. It would be wrong to say every technology that I know has some downsides or some problems associated with it. There's no free lunch, right? Like I said, fire.
Yeah.
No, look at any technology.
Or coal.
Coal. I mean,
Well,
those
before we
things.
let you go, I wanted to ask you about artificial intelligence because you mentioned you're writing a book and you gave us a sneak preview. Thank you for that. And something that really interested me, which is you're concerned that relying on AI is going to diminish the cognitive skills of the population. It's just like
Right.
with physical. If you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Skill
so if you're
decay.
not thinking, yeah. Can you
Yeah, skill
talk a little bit
decay.
about that? And when will this book be out?
Well, I hope within this year. Um, this is there are a lot of problems, as you may have seen from what I wrote. The most obvious one is the one that you mentioned, right? If people write articles, stop writing articles, or just type in a few themes and have the Chat GPT write the article for them, it's quite obvious that you're going to, if you keep doing that for a long time, you're going to lose the skill of transforming your ideas directly into an article. You lose the skill, or you lose actually the inclination to spend a lot of time making an article as good as possible, and so on. These effects are there are studies already about this that show this kind of effect. Also, the effect of people becoming less critical in their thinking. There's another problem. If you can have a summary of any book or any text, you don't have to read the whole text, right? So you stop reading. People stop reading whole texts. So there's a whole spectrum of problems which are very serious, I believe, and require thinking. The basic antidote is that people have to become smarter.
Right. You know, it made me think of something that I heard when I was, I guess, an adolescent, maybe teenager. I lived across the street in a suburb of New Haven, Connecticut, from a Yale University mathematics professor, and he had 3 sons, all of whom were older than I am. They were a great influence on me. And we were all New York Yankees fans. And the eldest of the 3 brothers, what you wrote made me think of this, and I'm curious if you think it's kind of the same point. The eldest of the 3 sons said that he prefers listening to the games on the radio rather than watching it on TV. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. But I think what he meant was because it forces him to think about it more and imagine what's going on. Is that kind of the same thing?
Well, I think that's if I understood what you're saying, there's a healthy reaction, namely to say, let's enjoy thinking. Let's demand more from ourselves. Like you go to a gym and you want to build, you want to be healthy, right? Use your mind, even if it's not necessary, but use it, because that's actually the highest form, or one of the highest forms of enjoyment you can have. And people should just, I think, and I think what you say is very, very right.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Because that was like 50 years ago, and I never understood it. But reading what you wrote made me think, oh, maybe that's what he was talking about. 50 years ago.
I mean, maybe it's also about lack of, you said something about mediocrity. And I think there's one irony here is that in your interview with Andrew Holland, you said that China has 10 times the number of PhDs and engineers in the fusion realm than we do. But what we're saying is we need fusion for AI, and AI makes you more of a mediocre person.
Well, yeah, things are a little bit screwed up, but I think the main point is AI doesn't make you stupid. You make yourself stupid by using it in a stupid way.
Yeah,
Fair,
by
fair.
relying on it too much. If it's just
That's true.
Right, and also not concentrating trading on the aspects of human thinking and cognition,
Right.
which differ completely from these artificial intelligence systems. I wrote in my book a chapter about the amount of human intelligence that is going into these systems. And you can't imagine the billions of web pages and texts and books, plus the human intelligence that went into the computer technology, plus all the intelligence that went into developing these systems, which is constantly going on. Some of the brightest people in the world are working on these things, plus 10 million people all around the world that sit in front of their screens and correct the answers of these systems, train the systems. So what you're really looking at when you're looking at ChatGPT or these sort of systems, you're looking at, in a sense, human intelligence served up in a somewhat reorganized way. So you're actually talking about human intelligence.
Oh, it's
As
not
far as I'm
artificial.
concerned, it's I don't have quite yet the right word for it, but it's not really, the system doesn't really have any intelligence. The intelligence is human intelligence. So the system uses it in a very interesting way, and very clever, but the cleverness, the enormous cleverness that's been going into this, and also there's a lot of money in it. So you have an enormous investment. So we have to look at it that way instead of being overawed by these systems. We're being overawed by the intelligence that's going into this, right? And the result of that, which is fantastic, it's a technological marvel, right? But we shouldn't also forget that, for example, these systems don't understand anything. There's nothing that corresponds to meaning in these systems. So it's actually fake. For example, translate out of this tremendously good translation, at least of the usual types of mediocre texts.
Like recipes. It's probably pretty good.
And you have to be careful because it sometimes makes weird errors. But this is fake. It's like I can set up a set of rules and translate Swahili into Urdu following these algorithms without knowing either of the two languages. So what it does has nothing to do with meaning, but the human mind is all about meaning. So this, I think part of the problem of the cognitive loss is associated with people having a wrong conception of what they're dealing with and undervaluing their own cognitive capabilities. So if you use AI right, it can boost. Sure, it's a great instrument.
So maybe using that as a driver to get to fusion, therefore to increase the investment in fusion, is not the worst thing in the world. And in fact, AI may be replacing all the airline pilots with AI systems that can be perfect. Okay, that's great. And then that means we have to retrain the population to do other things in the new fusion economy. That we're not suddenly, we don't, it doesn't mean we go backwards, right?
No, absolutely not. And I should just remark that the progress in fusion and the confidence about fusion has a lot to do with the breakthroughs in modeling and simulating these processes. Usually it's not AI in the general sense, but it is techniques, specialized techniques that permit one to model these processes in a way that nobody would have dreamt of being possible 20 years ago. That's also, I forgot to mention that, one of the main reasons for this confidence. So these technologies are fantastic if you know how to use them. And if you can make an argument using AI, why we should have nuclear energy, fine. Why not? I would prefer that the people think through all these things and contribute to the progress by developing their minds, because that's what's driving all of this. Right? There's no intelligence out there. We are driving these developments, and yeah, I mean that's the way I see it, at least.
All right. So people can read your columns at asiatimes.com. Does it come out with any specific intervals, once a month or just every so often?
Well, at the moment, I'm kind of on leave from Asia Times because of the work
yeah.
on the book. So
okay.
I will be
I understand.
occasionally writing for Asia Times on the really hot when some new things occur in fusion.
Is there anywhere else
of
on
course,
social media where
if-
people can find you? Do you have a website, or are you active on any social media?
At the moment, I don't have one on fusion. Also for the reason that I think what people should do is they can consult my authors page on Asia Times. You can just search it and under Asia Times Tenenbaum author page and get the articles that I've written so far and the ones that will come out in the course of time. And we may transit, when I do get finished with the book, to a regime where there'll be more regular coverage of fusion. I'm also looking for somebody who would sort of assist in this, because there are all these developments that are ongoing. You can imagine with the degree of effort that's going into it, there's a lot of news, a lot of development. So I'm looking for
So that
somebody,
sounds good.
yeah, who will
All right. Well,
report
thank you so
regularly.
much for joining us. It's pretty late there, I know, in Berlin, so we appreciate
Yeah.
it. What time is it?
It's now 1:45.
Oh, all right.
All right.
I'll write you a note if so your teacher will understand if you're late tomorrow.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Jonathan.
you very much, Jonathan.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, oops, sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay, so let's bring in Jose and Morgan.
Morgan and Jose.
Howdy.
Jose wants to
Hi.
argue some more about immigration. That's the. How you doing, Jose?
I'm doing well. I see that's a serious microphone Morgan has. Did America's Sweetheart get you that one too, or
No, this was all me.
wow?
You are coming in loud and clear.
Do I need to turn it down?
No.
Okay.
No,
No,
you're
no,
good.
no.
You're good. You're good.
You might want to reduce the space above your head though a little bit.
Yeah, you look far away.
There you go.
I can't get much closer.
All right.
All right, you got a desk that's sticking into your tummy. All right, I understand. So today there was in the news, well, I don't know if it happened today, but the news broke today, a Tufts student was arrested. Some might say kidnapped. Should we take a look at it, or do you want to
Yeah,
set
I
it
think
up?
we should.
Let's do it.
Well, where the hell is it?
It's right here. I got it right here. Here we go.
You can talk over it until the guy who's shooting it started yelling at the immigration
Yeah, he must have
agents.
been in an apartment or something overlooking this.
Yeah.
You guys covering your faces? You want to take those masks off? Is this a kidnapping?
Well, you know, when people get arrested.
Yeah, you don't
can
look
put-
like it. Why are you hiding your faces? Why are you hiding your faces?
I will say this, it sort of does remind me, just from looking at it without knowing much of the details, about a little bit like
Can
what
I see
they
some
are
faces
doing
here? How do I know this is the
in
police?
Ukraine, although this is a lot less
Seems like
violent.
bullshit to me.
All right. All right. Well, I think, you know, either the arrest was justifiable or it wasn't. Any arrest could be called a kidnapping. And there's this thing called undercover cops, so I don't know how relevant it is that their faces were covered. But why
I
don't we
think
talk
that
about...
I'm sorry, they were saying that it was because they didn't want to be doxxed, which I'm not sure if there's any credible evidence that they are being doxxed, but that's what the reason they gave. Still pretty scary.
Well, doxing is how you're giving out somebody's
yeah.
location, right?
Yes, they were saying they wanted to conceal their identity.
but the first step to that might be identifying who they are.
Yeah.
But I mean, in general, I mean, it's not like a weird thing for cops to work undercover, right? I mean, you don't. What difference does it make if?
Yeah, sure,
Is that
but
really
you know,
important? What?
I mean, come on, this is just.
I'm
like,
not saying that the arrest was justified. I'm saying I don't see what difference it makes.
I didn't say whether you said it was justified or not. I'm just saying you're just walking along. She was just talking with her mom on the phone. That's what the reports say. And then suddenly, like a group of masked vigilantes, you know, wearing their MAGA hats, come out of the corners out of nowhere, and suddenly you're surrounded, and you're like, "What the heck is going on?" And then you're arrested, and now you're suddenly in a deportation center. Come on, you know. I mean, Ryan was talking about what this reminded him of. It also reminded me of Nazi Germany, you know, because that's kind of where we are now, where you can just jail people and deport people for having a difference of opinion. You know, her only crime was writing an op-ed urging people and universities to divest their investments from Israel, or if they receive funds from Israel, to stop.
Well, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Actually, Secretary Rubio was asked this very question, and this is his response to that.
What was your State Department's role in that process?
We revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country.
All right, we had a very spirited discussion
What
about,
sorry about that.
the Mahmoud Khalil case, and one of the things I was saying is, well, there may be more evidence coming of other, and you know, additional charges. And you were saying, Jose, well, we would have known that already. And I was like, well, what makes you say that? And it turns out that there have been. It was something that Ryan pointed out, that he had worked for the British Embassy, and apparently, I'm not saying that the charge is justified, but I'm saying I was right that there was an additional charge, and it was about how he filled out his application and what he said or didn't say about his employment. So maybe you'd like to acknowledge that I was right, that more could be coming, and maybe you don't know the whole story with this woman yet either.
No.
Why not?
I mean,
What
I
did
feel
I
like
get
I have
wrong?
Go
I feel
ahead.
like I would have to push back on that one. I mean, that one seems like it's an after the fact, you know, revelation that they saw. That's kind of more of a technicality, more than what the reasoning that they're saying, which essentially is it poses a security to, you know, the national interests or national security threat. Same thing with this one. Is it going to be just a technicality? Did she fill out her application wrong? That's why we have to kick her out of the country? But the real underlying reason seems to be her position on Israel, calling out what's happening. And I just feel like, as Americans, freedom of speech it's not like a privilege that the government allows us to have. It's a right.
As Americans,
Yeah,
that's
but-
for sure.
Yes, but don't you think
But-
that when you touch U.S. soil, you're also you have that right. I mean, we start wars under the premise of, you know, spreading freedom of democracy and speech because it's such a core value to us. Now we're going to dictate who's a citizen and who has that right. And
Well, yeah, we do by law.
under the INA.
U.S. law. I mean, I'm not trying to
they're
play
win-
devil's.
they're-
I'm not trying to
they're-
play
it's all-
devil's advocate here, but
Yeah, it's almost like a contractual issue. They sign something that agrees to being here on certain conditions, which include less rights.
But the thing is, it's not necessarily about the contractual obligations. It's who's it being applied to, who's actually being enforced on? Shai
Right, well,
Davidai wasn't, deported. He's not being deported. He's a green card guy from Colombia. He was harassing and stalking Colombia students. That's been proven with evidence, and this was months. That's why they expelled him from Colombia. They're not talking about deporting him back to Israel, although I'm sure he wouldn't mind it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
where
it's
the
not
other
all about
pedophiles
Israel.
go.
I mean, Trump, and I'm not saying I agree with the way the Trump administration is conducting all their immigration proceedings. Excuse me, but just to address this point about why they're doing it, it was all over the news that they deported these guys who were supposedly in this Venezuelan gang with no due process to really confirm whether or not they were. They were sent to a prison in El Salvador, which is like way beyond just deporting them. And so it's not only about Israel.
Well, it's not only about Israel, but in a way it is. I mean, the Venezuelan gangs is one thing, and quite frankly, that's also should be looked at. I mean, they're trying to apply what happened in El Salvador here to the United States, which I was all in accordance with how they did in El Salvador. They locked up 60,000 MS-13 gang members. They don't make it very difficult to identify them because in order to be initiated into the gang, you have to get a gang tattoo. So, I mean, now it's one of the safest places in Central America. But you don't apply that here in the United States in the same way. We've seen people get deported because they had a tattoo, which was the autism ribbon, with this guy's brother's name on it, and he was wrongfully deported. So obviously we do things a little bit differently here in the United States, but quite frankly, conflating the two issues between the Venezuelan gangs, which is one thing, and whether or not, that's justified, I don't personally think it is, but the point is, it's like, this is about Israel. This would not be happening if they were not critical about Israel. There are many F1. First of all, she was a Fulbright scholar. And for Marco Rubio to just say, well, if you come here and you start burning buildings and you start rioting, well, this goes back to my point on Mahmoud Khalil. What if did she? Because go ahead.
He's actually making something a lot more alarming. He's actually saying that some other protesters engage in those actions, and so therefore she is also liable, which is something that we should not be happy with, because any protest you can have maybe a bad faith actor come and raise a ruckus, and then you are also liable for just voicing your opinion on something that is wrong.
And isn't that part of what
Sam,
they're trying to discover? Is there a bad faith acting going on here or not?
But see, like, what? Do you just start arresting people thinking they may have committed a deeper crime?
Well, you are
you say I'm
innocent until proven
conflating
guilty
issues.
by law. You're supposed to.
You say I'm conflating issues, but I mean, I agree that the Trump administration is overly deferential to Israel, to put it mildly. I agree. But I don't know, that makes sense as I'm conflating issues when we're talking about the different reasons that people are deported. Why not mention what happened to the Venezuelan gang members also? That's not meant to negate your point about Israel. It's just additional.
No, but it makes it look, it doesn't give it the credibility. For example, if it was only Venezuelan gang members getting deported, I don't think a lot of people would be complaining about the immigration practices of the Trump administration. But because you're also conflating them with college students who write op-eds about why they disagree with American foreign policy, and that's enough for you to be like, you see, you're a Hamas supporter, you support terrorists, you would have been one of the people you would have been one of the people riding in on the paraglides on October 7th. We know it. Get out of here. I mean, it's like the very fact that people and that we have to be discussing, well, on a contractual basis, this is happening because it's politically motivated, and that's the infuriating part about all of it.
Okay. So I'm willing to say that that's true. It's political. That's not a stretch to say that at all.
No,
But once you say that, I mean, can't we also make some other points too?
No, because then you're ignoring the great injustice that's going on here.
So you just want to just say it over and over again, and don't bring other points.
You know what they used to do in the South in the 1950s, or even before then, during the Jim Crow laws, to justify why a person of color should get more years for the same crime that a man who is white only would have to pay a penalty for. Well, it's in the laws. A colored man,
True.
you're a man of color, and you committed the same crime as a white man, but the law says that if you commit the same crime, you're going to get 20 years in the slammer, whereas a white man will just have to pay a penalty. So hey, I'm not saying it's, of course it's motivated by racism, but that's the law. That's the law. Can't we make the point that that's the law?
And the law's got to be changed.
Yeah, but yes, the law should be changed.
I mean,
but
that's
it's do you get what I feel like? I'm talking to
no. I get what you're saying. You're making your point.
I hope so. I like
But
to think that the person who's
however,
watching this 50 years
H.
from
Share
now
doesn't
knows I'm
agree
right.
with you. H. Share does not agree with you. I wish
Really?
we
Because
actually
Stefan Coron does agree with me. He says
Corcoran.
exactly
Yes,
so.
I know he does.
And thank you, George Coronio.
But what I was suggesting is H. Share. I don't know where you are, but do you have the phone line hooked up, Jeff? Can he call in?
Thank you, T-Bone in the chat.
Yeah, well, I have the phone line hooked up.
The issue is the Constitution. I mean, these people do have a Fourth and a Fifth Amendment constitutional right.
No, the Supreme Courts have always upheld that immigrants have all the rights as American citizens do. This has just always been the case. The Supreme Court has had to deal with this. You know when the Supreme Court had to deal with this? In 1936 at Columbia University, when they brought a student who was here on a student visa who was trying to protest Nazism at Columbia. And the president of Columbia said, you need to get out of here, and try to deport him. And the Supreme Court said, no, this is a free speech issue. And so you know what the president of Columbia did at the time? He brought an actual Nazi ambassador from Germany to come and speak at the campus. And here they are doing it again. Yeah, you can call in too, Stefan, if you want to.
Yeah.
This issue of representing Israel's interests is bigger than the immigration issue. It also involves war policy. So the part that just baffles me is that you're getting no disagreement on that, but you object to other points being mentioned too. And I wasn't being sarcastic when I said, well, what do you want to do? Just keep saying it over and over again?
I think what you're asking, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, you want to know what could somebody do, like you, or is that what you're saying? What do you do?
Well, that's one thing. Yeah, I mean, you gotta. I mean, Sun Tzu in The Art of War says, "Know thy enemy." Mm-hmm. So and I've never heard anybody reject that as unwise. So if we believe in that, then one way to know thy enemy is to understand the enemy's motivations, but the other way is to understand their tactics and strategies, and that's where the law comes in.
Well,
I'm
but
not.
The thing
you
is,
act like I'm negating your point of view when I bring in other things too. Even when I just started by saying, hey, I guess I was right, there were additional charges. Morgan, well, I need to push back on that. Well, you didn't so much push back as change the topic.
Okay, congrats.
Well,
There was a thing where he filled out his visa form wrong, even though it was known that he worked at the British Embassy before.
Yeah.
Now what?
Like I said, know thy enemy. That means not only focus on the motivations, but focus on what they're doing, what their strategies and tactics are. That's how you beat your enemy.
Their strategy, they played, first of all, they
By the way,
played dirty.
we have somebody calling in. Should we take the call?
I think it's
Thank
probably
you,
going to be
Somerville
Stefan.
John. I'm glad that we are with Jose too.
It's Stefan.
All right.
Is it Stefan?
Let me take
or
the call. It's not Stefan.
Oh.
Hey there, you're on with Morgan, Jose, Ryan, and Jeff. How you doing?
Well, hello everyone. This is Helen.
Hey,
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Ryan, Jeff, Jose, Morgan.
Hey.
I'm the one who
Hi.
said no. I disagree with Jose on the.
Oh, good.
On the
Now
comparison
I'm
about
glad
black
we
and
took your
white.
call.
Okay. Tell us why.
because I don't believe foreigners. I think Morgan, you made the point earlier that once you arrive in the United States, foreigners have the same rights as citizens, and I completely disagree with that. Although they do say the Bill of Rights applies to everyone equally. So to equate foreigners with citizens and compare, and using the comparison of black and whites, is completely non-comparison at all, in my opinion. So that's why I was disagreeing on that one small point with Jose.
Well, I understand, but to Jeff's point about the law, the Supreme Court has upheld that foreigners do have the same rights as citizens when they're on U.S. soil, and they will be tried as if they have the same rights. So, that's what the law says. So, and you're welcome to disagree with the law, and maybe we should change it.
Well, I agree with, of course, both you and Jeff on that one, that maybe the law, and Brian, I think you also mentioned that. Just because the Supreme Court says, mass does not make them right. Let's put it that way. The Supreme Court has been wrong sometimes. Again, I am not able to actually speak about the Supreme Court because I'm not a lawyer and I don't have the historical background to be able to speak to that.
Well, if we had a legal expert, he or she would say that what Jose said isn't quite right. It's a lot more nuanced than that. They do not have the exact.
Exactly.
They don't have the same rights. They have some of the same rights. But
I don't know, but this is the problem with the interpretation of law, because then I could find you some other lawyer who could argue something else and would be also right.
Right, that's why the law needs to be a lot more clear.
Well, no, because then it's up to a judge on how they want to interpret it. Like that's the idiocy about talking about law. It's like there's no objective means.
Well,
to
I'll
it
give you an
because it's all
example.
determined by
I'll give you an
people.
example. I don't know how to get around this. I'll give you an example of something that I don't think is in dispute, but you've got to. It's like it's evidence specific. The Supreme Court has ruled that the stronger let's say somebody has a green card holder, the stronger their connection is to the U.S., the more rights that they have. So, for example, with Khalil, he has strong connections because he has a green card, but in addition to that, he's married to a U.S. citizen, and she's 8 months pregnant. So something like that is like, it's not so much people are disagreeing with it, it's just it's case specific.
Well, I would like a litmus. I would like a scale. Like how many? When does he earn his First Amendment right? Should he have 2 kids? Should that kid have been born first, and then he would have his First Amendment right? How about someone who's just on a green card, no wife, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend? Maybe then you might get your Third Amendment and Fourth Amendment.
No. But wait. No, Jose, wait. My understanding is the first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights applies to everyone, whether you're a citizen or not.
Yes.
That is applicable. So that example doesn't quite apply here.
Yeah, and then, like I said, other issues come in. For example, if you sign something that says you're giving up some of those rights, that's relevant.
It's just insane to me that the hypocrisy. I mean, if Jordan Peterson, who's in the United States on a visa,
who's a Canadian,
who's an idiot. Sorry, Canadian, same thing in my opinion. That's not
come on.
No. T-Bone's a Canadian.
No, except T-Bone. If your name's not T-Bone,
don't do that.
If your name's not T-Bone, and you're a Canadian, and you're someone who T-Bone likes, Anyway, my point is, like, if Jordan Peterson was being deported by the Biden administration for being critical of its policies, you would have the same people like Viva Frei, Ben Shapiro, like, on an uproar defending immigrant rights. Oh my God, the totalitarian Biden regime is censoring people and deporting them who disagree. This is Nazi Germany. See, that's the rub. Okay, that's like the underlying thing about all this, is that people are upset that it's happening on their side, or that it's not happening on their side, that it's happening in what they think is their favor. And as a result, they're going to cheer it on, and they're going to cherry pick you on the law just so that they can feel like, well, it might be messed up, might not be, but the law is the law,
Well, I mean, Jose, to that point, I mean, because Jeff also brought up the war danger, right? Trump campaigned to be the anti-war president, and already we've started bombing in Yemen, and we're apparently building up forces to have a conflict with Iran. So people would definitely be upset that that is a reversal of what he campaigned on to be the peace president. So certainly people are going to be upset about that. There's no doubt.
All right, we have
about
another
that.
call. Is anything else you wanted to say, Helen, before we say bye-bye?
Yes.
It was nice talking to you.
If I may, Jeff,
Sure.
to Jose, I do agree with you, Jose, that something smells bad about these prosecutions. It definitely they're political. So they've got to prove to me that the crime was indeed committed. Otherwise, I would not be in favor of these. So I do agree with you, Jose, and I also disagree with you. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Goodbye. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Night.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
for
call.
calling in.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And even though you call it conflation, I think it supports what you're after when I bring up the Venezuelan gang members, because they didn't get due process either. At least, I want Khalil to get due process. Let's take a call from. Hey there, could you lower your computer, please? Hello.
I did.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. How you doing?
Stefan.
I'm good. How are you?
I got a lot of personal problems.
Me too.
As usual.
Is this Stefan?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I
course.
guessed it. I guessed it.
It's not the name that on the caller ID. That may be your.
It's my wife's name.
Oh, all right.
You told me that last time around, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago.
Well, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast.
Everybody is on my wife's name. Her son, myself, you name it.
All right,
What's
so
on your mind,
Stefan,
Stefan?
tell us what's up.
That's why my company is called Gear Books. My wife's last name.
All right. What do you want to discuss?
What was the purpose of the amendments, please? A little bit of constitutional history here.
The first?
Or all of them?
Amendments. What was the reason why they were introduced?
Well, one reason is to limit government's power.
Exactly.
Did I win a
Constrain
prize?
government's power.
Did I win a prize?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So, how can government overstep its boundaries when it comes to constitutional constraints?
Well, it shouldn't, but would you like to be more specific?
Yeah, because you do have checks and balances. in
Congress shall
theory.
make no law. That is how the First Amendment starts. Congress shall make no law.
Yeah, well, you won't get very far being a literalist about that, because there are already plenty of exceptions to the First Amendment, many of which almost everybody thinks are quite reasonable.
You mentioned
Well,
that
that's not true.
the Supreme Court.
It's not true? What about
Glenn
time?
Greenwald
What
did a whole special on this. You know, this whole thing, everyone's like, well, you can't yell fire in a theater. Actually, you can. The Supreme Court actually
We didn't.
upheld-
I don't say that.
Well, you can you take that up with Glenn Greenwald. Jeff Norman isn't saying that. What I'm saying is that the Supreme Court has ruled there can be reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And I've never heard that be the source of controversy. Meaning, for example, you can't use amplification during certain hours. You're not entitled to use other people's property just because you want to. Things like that.
Okay. How about when you read the First, the Fourth, and the Fifth, and the 14th Amendment?
Wow,
It says no person. It doesn't say Americans.
I don't know. Can you be specific? Which
Well, read it.
It's not all about. It's not all about the wording of the amendment. It's about how it's been interpreted over the years. But is that
How it's
is
been
there-
applied.
Yeah. Well, you got to interpret it. You got to interpret it.
It's funny.
What is that?
No, it's just because I said that earlier. It's just kind of funny.
Well, there was no disagreement. I don't know what your point is.
My point is that
I'm talking to Jose, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm
No, it's all
sorry.
right. Go ahead, Stefan.
My point is the Constitution applies to all persons in the United States, within the jurisdiction of the United States. It doesn't distinguish between Americans or non-Americans. A green card, when you revoke a green card, by the way, Secretary Rubio had the timeline completely wrong. This Khalil guy entered the country in 2019. There was no October 7th. There was no pressure from the Israeli lobby and whatnot. And he couldn't foresee what
Where's
was
that audio
happening.
coming from? Is that you playing something, Jose?
No. What audio? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm here.
It might be in the
Something
background of Stefan.
Stefan, you have something in the background?
No,
All right.
no.
I guess.
I can barely hear you guys off my computer. I'm just listening to your voice. Jeff.
All right. I heard something from somebody. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So let me just bring up something. 2021 to February 2024, the Biden administration had 1.1 million deportations. George W. Bush, it looks like he had, Biden administration had, what is repatriation? Something like 4.4 million repatriations. W. Bush had 5 million in his second term. So, I mean, I think these cases are particularly big in the news, but there are huge numbers of deportations in every presidency going back for a number of years. Nobody is making an incident of those until now in particular. And I would just say that, Jose, everything you've said about, let's just say the Jewish lobby policy, whatever, that hasn't changed now compared to the last 4 presidents.
Well, maybe Israel didn't need to deport people.
No, we did deport people is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think specifically what he's trying to say with Israel, there's more of these narrative loss. They've lost the control of the narrative. So they're kind of scrambling on how they get it back. And that is kind of a way that they utilize it, is kind of scaring people away from taking their free speech. I'm sure when this woman wrote the op-ed, she, in her wildest dreams, didn't think that it would be thrown back in her face. And that's all we know right now. I'll give you that, Jeff. There might be other things down the road, but if it comes to the extent where it's someone else at the protest had engaged in actions, I don't agree with that. But the way Israel is conducting itself, it seems like it's lost its narrative. It's like trying to freak out, and what it's going to do is, get these kids who are using their mouth and their words to basically expose what's happening through, not even what
There you
America's
go.
doing, what Israel's doing.
Are you watching, Stefan, or just listening?
I'm listening only. I'm looking at my
Article
screen,
1,
but I
Section
don't
2 of the
have,
Constitution, thanks to Cher, says it includes the word citizens of the United States.
What do you say about that, Mr. Constitutional Expert?
Oh. May I ask something here? I just want to throw that out.
I asked something. May I get an answer?
Yeah, I know. Citizens of the United States.
Yeah.
Who
You said it was.
is a
You said
citizen?
it said people. You come on here to school
Look
us
at
in the
14th
Constitution,
Amendment.
but
No. Look at the 14th Amendment.
I
Persons.
have the Constitution somewhere.
Yeah, me too. I must have.
oh, you're talking about only the 14th.
I read it. Can somebody tell me what an illegal immigrant is? Can please somebody tell me?
It's
Well,
whoever
you're going to have
Trump
to use
says it is.
Google for that, okay? Because usually it has to be somebody who does not, was not.
All right, let's not pretend
born here,
any of
something
us
like that.
are
I don't know. I'm not a
constitutional
lawyer.
experts.
Did not come through a port of entry, or is not documented. I think those are two kind
I
of.
think it's something like that,
Morgan. Where is it written that there has to be an entry through a port of entry?
I don't know.
So I would just say it
Where
doesn't
is
quite
it
make the
written?
point because
Hang on a second. I'm going to lower Stefan's volume to see if it's.
he's got a
audio
radio on or something in the background.
Yeah, and he says he's got nothing.
Yeah, he
All
can't
right,
hear it.
So
We can
let's
hear
see. Okay, that was it. That's what I thought. That's enough, Stefan. All right, Stefan, take care. Next time, turn down the noise in the background.
Yeah. We
Oh,
can
did he
hear it.
hang up?
No, it's
I just hung up. I can't take that noise. Maybe you don't hear it because you don't have earbuds on, but he's got something on in the background, and I don't know why he doesn't realize it. All right. Anything else before we say goodnight?
Yeah, I got a lot to say.
Go. Okay, well, say it. Say it.
You go, girl. You go, girl.
Oh my! I'm trying to say this while having a stroke. About,
Say it.
I don't know. Look, you know what? Someone else talk first. Let me collect my thoughts because I had a lot to say, and then
I've been waiting. I've been
There he is.
quiet.
All persons born or naturalized, not all persons. So he's wrong about the.
we'll keep
14th
reading. We'll
Amendment
keep
there.
reading that amendment. Keep reading that amendment. It says all persons, not just.
I know it does. It does make
It starts by saying all persons born or
jurisdiction
naturalized.
of the United States. So I think that
Right.
you can't have that argument that
Well, that's the part
Anyone
that
who is-
people quibble
I'm sorry?
over. Yeah, that's the part people quibble over. What is subject to the jurisdiction mean
Mm-hmm.
exactly?
Look, okay. Now I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Morgan. You're about to say something.
oh no, you're fine. I mean, I guess my closing remarks is that it's when we
No,
start.
don't make these closing remarks. I'm about to open this can of worms.
Just go for it. Just go for it.
have
Don't
another-
tell us
we have
about it.
another-
Just
Go for it,
tell
okay.
us.
Look,
I-
it
I
is
can
very
keep the-
clearly the law is used. Sorry about that police siren if you hear that. The law is clearly being used by the people in power as a means to go after people they don't like. Right now, it just happens to be the Israeli lobby, bought by Miriam Adelson to the Trump administration, who is trying to make an example out of college students for disagreeing with American foreign policy on how we handle the Middle East region, as they call it. Really, is Southwest Asia is probably a better way of referring to that region. So, quite frankly, the law doesn't matter. All that matters is who's wielding it and however they want to interpret it. They can bend that thing backwards as far as they want. Come on, look at it. We've been living in a surveillance state since after 2001. The Patriot
True.
Act, all of that was supposedly constitutional and legal, right? So they don't care about the law. The law is just a means to their end. All that matters is who's interpreting the law. Because if you believe in an objective law, which doesn't exist, quite frankly, because it really is all on interpretation, but if you actually believed that, we would be seeing Shai Davidai getting deported. We would be seeing a whole bunch of people getting deported on this so-called contractual basis, but we are not. We're only seeing one group of people getting deported from this narrative that they are, Hamas supporters. And that's the thing about the Venezuelan gangs, by the way, because they are trying to say, oh, great, we're deporting Venezuelan gang members and Hamas supporters. Great. Who could disagree with that? Unlike if you are only somebody who watches the TV and you're being told Venezuelan gangs and Hamas supporters who would probably be riding on the paraglides on October 7th are getting deported, I would be popping champagne and saying, what a great administration, if I was stupid enough to believe CNN.
All right. You want to take another call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey there. You're on with Jose, Morgan, Ryan, and America's Sweetheart. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Aaron. The question I had, I'm terribly sorry that I don't recall the bald gentleman's name, but he offered as a rejoinder to somebody who had remarked that the uptake in deportations specific to the Israel lobby is not an anomaly, and cited previous administrations who had also, some in far more exorbitant numbers, deported.
Right.
I don't see how this is terribly relevant because all of those previous administrations' deportations were not premised on the exercise of free speech vis-a-vis the criticism of Israel. Show me one single example of any deportation since the creation of the Israel lobby with the 1897 Basel, Switzerland meeting up to President Trump, where there was a deportation in the United States premised on the criticism of Israel.
So your name was
There were none.
Aaron? Your name is Aaron?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
His name is Ryan, by the way.
I'm
but
Ryan.
we can
Ryan.
We can call him Chrome Dome if that's easier to read.
Nice to meet you, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And of course, part of the whole thing, you're right on that. Is that the Trump administration, President Trump, also had an executive order specifically about anti-Semitism. So this also flows right from that.
No, it doesn't. That executive order was
I'll look it up
legally
here, too.
rejoindered, and it hasn't been settled yet. The precedent is not that executive order. He did issue such an executive order. But
No,
the
what I'm
legal
saying
precedent
is, I'm
not
saying
that
it doesn't
executive
come
order.
from the executive order. I'm saying that the whole idea of measures to combat anti-Semitism was going to be thematic to the administration's policy, starting with that executive order.
Well, it can be thematic, but it's an anomaly that people are being deported, whether they be visa holders,
It's not because they said they were going to do it. It's not because they said they were going to do
That
it.
doesn't mean it's not an anomaly. If I say that I'm going to blow up a school and there's never been schools blown up, my doing it would be an anomaly. My having said I will do it does not make it not an anomaly.
Well, I'm saying I guess it's not unexpected.
Okay, it may not be unexpected to those who, first of all, I don't know how that's relevant, because the argument is that there is no legal or historical precedent for this. The announcement that someone will do something doesn't mean that it's a precedent.
I never said it was.
And
yeah.
and the previous administration, you did. You said.
Oh, I did say. I said no. I said the number of deportations were very high in these. Yeah, no, that's fair.
But
I said
what were these deportations? Generally, they were illegal aliens. That's
A lot
the
of them
largest number of deportations.
we're Title 42, right? So you're coming in. I think that has to do with communicable diseases. Trying to come into the country with communicable diseases, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, communicable diseases. There's other.
That's one of them. That's what.
instances
That
as
was
well.
the
I
main.
won't
That was the
pretend to be
main
a
thing.
Specialist about this, but I do know, as somebody who studies the Israel lobby and the Israel-Palestine conflict, as well as the shift post 1956 to the United States as being the nation with the special relationship, where it once was France and before that the UK, that beginning with that relationship, there has never been an instance prior to Donald Trump, President Trump, that there have been citizens or non-citizens who have faced deportation as a repercussion. There are people who've lost their jobs.
Yep. That's
all.
good. Thanks.
That I
No,
wanted
thanks for
to
calling
say.
in. That's great. Thanks.
All right.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
love the body shaming too.
Bald guy.
Well, it's a nice bald head. The man clearly exercises.
All right, Aaron. Thanks for the call.
Thanks very much,
Take care,
Aaron.
my man.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So, Morgan, though, what you said was interesting. You say lost the narrative, and so this is being pushed to regain the narrative.
For Israel,
you-
yes, in particular.
Yeah, say more about that. But where is the lost the narrative?
The ADL guy, what is it, Greensplat? Is that his name? It's kind of
Jonathan Greenblatt, I think that's his name.
yeah, that guy. He's on record even saying it, is that it's not a it's a generational problem. We need to get a handle on what's going on, or it's going to lose us when these kids start growing up and they start getting more in positions of power. So it's already they've let the cat out of the bag, and that was with them basically wanting to get rid of TikTok, which that was also by a push to reclaim the narrative, because a lot of the hashtags were Palestine, and the people were seeing what was happening on the grounds there. And it had nothing to do about national security in China. And that's been proven over and over again, especially with the leaked audio of the ADL Greensplat guy, basically saying that we need to get a handle on this. We need to get a handle on it quick. It's a generational problem. So that's kind of why I said that. It's not just I'm pulling it out of thin air.
No. I just wanted you to say more about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think you were pulling it out of thin hair.
Or no hair.
Just because this is all about baldness. It's not about thin hair.
Oh wait,
And
are
the
you not
fact that I'm
naturally
wearing
bald?
a hat may or may not mean that I'm bald.
Do you shave your head in the morning, Ryan?
I do.
Dedication.
I do.
Look
With
how
a lawnmower.
beautiful
Gotta
and
keep the
shiny
cue
it
ball up
is.
there.
There's nary a stray hair. Of course he does.
I actually have a full head of hair. I just cut it off.
Wait, really?
No.
Oh, I was about to say, if people donate to my campaign, we need another $2,000. Ryan Milton will grow out his hair.
Yes, I will. It looks similar to yours.
VoteVega.nyc. VoteVega.nyc.
Vega.nyc. That's right. Yes. Ryan
All
Milton
right, join
will
us
wear-
tomorrow night on Ask the Inspector at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with our favorite weapons inspector, Scott Ritter. Jose acted before like he's got a lot to get off his chest, so I'll give you one more opportunity. If that last rant didn't get it all out, is there anything else you want to say, Jose?
No, you know what? Honestly, go ahead, Morgan. You can have the last
Pull
word.
something out, Morgan.
Because-
Aw, thank
Come on, Morgan.
I would just say
I
this is
cut
very
you off
dangerous
last time. so go
route
ahead.
that we're going through. If we want to continue down this road, I don't know where it will stop. Considering or pertaining to the men who were shipped to El Salvador, I find that also alarming. They weren't given due process. There is room for mistake there. Okay, I don't care if even if they are the worst people in the world, we have the standard of due process, and where there's room for mistakes, I want there to be as much time and as much words spoken and dialogue in between, so we make sure that who is not a good person goes.
Right, especially since we're talking about not just deportation, but imprisonment in a very rough prison, according to all reports.
and not their home country. So it's not even relocating
crazy.
them to their home. It's a completely different foreign land.
Right.
Jose has something to think
What do
about.
they call
but there are good people
rendition,
that-
like
that get-
rendition almost.
And then
Yeah,
pertaining to
I want due process for Khalil too.
and for Rumey, I'm sorry if I've
The woman who was arrested today, the tough student. Yeah.
yes, and I think that they said that they've revoked like 300 visas from students. I mean, it's just such a wild route to go through. I mean, especially since the Elon Musk saying that we need to import people, the finest and brightest, because we want to have all this technological advancement.
Which is
Now
not
we're-
good. I'm against that, actually.
Well, it's kind of hypocritical, because then you're going to deport people that you may not, because you don't politically agree with them on the stance of Israel, but they may be intelligent people that could progress this country. You guys just had a, nuclear fission scientist on, basically speaking about where we're, failing in that aspect. And this is where we're putting our effort is, deporting people from op-eds as far as we can see. I'll give that to Jeff.
Isn't it amazing that people who drink so much wine cover so many different important topics?
I mean,
Well,
Judge,
just-
I know, Morgan. Judge Knapp also said that this is something Jeff and I were talking about the other day, that they haven't unsealed the charges against Khalil because the statute says they have to be sealed. So a lot of people are asking questions, but there is a
and
statute.
he's the only one who said that, and I don't get it. He said that by law they have to keep the charges secret. I'm like, either he's wrong or everybody else is strangely incompetent for not even mentioning that. But he said it in no uncertain terms. You guys hear what we're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we had that recording ready to go. I didn't know that was.
Yeah, he just said we just don't know enough.
I mean, I
to be able-
respect Judge Knapp a lot, so I don't know what to say about that. It's just odd that he's the only one saying it. That's all.
Well, he may know. I mean, he has the word judge.
But
in
he's
front
not
of his
even an
name.
immigration expert. Some of these other attorneys are, so they should know. I don't know.
So Morgan,
Anyway, we
you're going
should
to
try-
come on next time, right?
Yeah, you guys
Keep
will have
coming
me.
on. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I've been hearing only through Jose that you want to come back. I haven't been.
Well, no,
able
this
to
Perry
get
Perry
you.
said, please, more.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've been trying to get Morgan to tell me privately that she wants to come on, but all right, now we find
I
out.
want to be invited.
Morgan,
You're invited.
you're invited.
You're invited.
Thank you. I feel a part of the club. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
So tomorrow night, Ask the Inspector, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us on the Winers next Thursday night, as usual, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Jose. Another lively discussion. We love that. Thank you, Ryan, and thanks to our beloved audience. Nighty-night, everybody.